Women being raped and women not getting fair vote and fair share of political action because of those said private schools. And those private schools boys go on to make sure that women have no rights and laugh and abuse and make sure that nothing of humanity can grow. That's how private schools can happen, and that's why private schools always must happen. Because for the rich, the private schools are guaranteeing that greed and human compassion is never ever educated. That's why we live in a world of greed. That's why we live in a world of war and hatred. It's because of private school. Private school fundamentally drive the need for more horror. And what does that do? That guarantees their dominance as leaders of our society to spread horror and other aspects of the disease which happens. The horrors of the world today are based on our education we had in the past. Unless we own the past, unless we own today, therefore we can never own the future. And we'll leave the future in the hands of the genocide-loving human degenerates, which is Boris Johnson, which is the rich kids. And they all spread the disease that the poor must stay poor forever. That's the disease. They normalise. They always normalise that the disease of the poor must always be poor. And they do that to make sure that the rich are always rich. This is why they have the power. This is why they own our political system, so that they can educate that the working class should never have any rights. So they can educate that greed is good, that war is essential, that war is essential. That's how. Pardon? Okay, this man has no idea of the planet he lives on today. His delusions are profound, that the world is at war, and this war kills people. Are you not aware of that?
Which war? The coronavirus war?
So, you've got nothing to say. I can understand that, because saying things is very hard. Understanding reality is very hard. So being stupid or being abusive is all they can do. Being abusive or being deliberately stupid is all that they can offer the world. All they can offer the world is abuse. But what they cannot do, the rich cannot do, is offer a humanity, offer a world where poverty is ended forever. What they can't do is offer a humanity to every individual. They'll never do that. They'll strip away your humanity. They will always strip your humanity away, because that makes the rich richer. And that's how they always gain their power. They own your education system, and the rich will make sure all you'll ever learn is despair. All you'll ever learn is that war, greed and hatred are the normality which you have to accept. That's what private education does. Therefore, we must take ownership of our education, put humanity as the very highest form of what we can achieve, put science, understanding, reason, compassion, and the teaching of different religions, not just one religion, but the teaching of all religions, making sure that a Christian and a Jew can understand each other, making sure a Muslim and a Jew and a Christian can understand each other, rather coming from a base of no understanding, apart from the understanding that hate is good. That's how our UK schools teach. They teach hate is good. Hate is good. Greed is good. Now,
you ask me why Jesus, and I tell you why not Jesus. Why not Jesus? Because of Calvary. He might be for Calvary.
You are rebelling against God, and that is there is none righteous, no, not one. All have sinned.
Became a man, lived as a man, died on the cross, and all that he might save us from our sin. That's why he did it, because we were not good enough to save ourselves.
He's not good enough.
Never be good enough to save
Jesus
ourselves.
is not good
You
enough.
can never do enough for God. You can never do enough righteous acts to get you to the
Tell him to
place
come
where you
back.
have reconciliation, when you are brought near to a God who is holy. God says he's of more pure eyes to even look on iniquity, and that's why when Jesus Christ was on the cross and he bore our sins, the Father departed and he said, my God, why have you forsaken me? Why? Because he's on
No, just take it. No, just take it.
Illegal for you to open this up and to change the configuration technically inside. But if you go to Shenzhen, they've got a huge shopping centre there where you can literally walk up to someone and say, I want a mobile phone that does fantastic graphics on 3D, and I want one that's got a 360-degree camera, and that plays fantastic quality music when I plug it into my Bang & Olufsen speakers. Right? So please, can you do that? They can do it for you. It will be illegal under international copyright law, but they can do it. So the ability of man, given the fact that machinery is declining in size, you will be able to make these things at a nano level in future. They will be able to, on your fingernails, remember the Google glasses, they will be inside your eye. And so the issue is, how... There you go. And so the issue then becomes, this is the question that's emerged out of the pandemic. This is the result of the pandemic. Or better said, the result of the pandemic under this social
That is why
system.
blockchain technology is the future.
I'm not so sure about that, but I've heard the argument. I'm not so sure about that. The gentlemen think blockchain technology is the future. But if you've got, because it's an unbreakable code, but if you've got quantum computing, you can break that code.
Because it's decentralized.
So, therefore, how long will blockchain last if you can break into it? Possibly, but of course, who's got control over these things? I remember back in 1994, I read a piece from a naval postgraduate school. There was someone qualifying in the naval postgraduate school in a master's degree. They all have to write these theses, and in there, one of their military academy students was writing about what he called the knowledge engine. And the key thing is this: whatever technology we have in our pockets, whatever technology we have to combine, to coordinate, to discuss, to broadcast, to debate, to make music, make videos, exchange ideas, use secret information, make encrypted technology to communicate, whatever we have, the NSA, the British intelligence, the American intelligence, the Israeli intelligence, they have 100,000 times more than we have. And you cannot, by these means, have some secure defence against the power of them. All you have is your human action to defend you against those powers. That is why I was very pleased to read the news this morning that Sajjad Javid suddenly turned around and said, we are not going to introduce vaccine passports for clubs or big events. Hadn't they sworn blind for a month that they were definitely doing this? Which means they have feelers, questions, studies of behavioural views, studies of the response of the population that tell them that if they do this, there will be a generalised revolt of the youth. That's what they feared. And how do I'll give you an indication from my own observation. When the government said you no longer need to wear a mask on the underground or in a shop, for a little while some people were like, yeah, I'm going to wear 7 masks, right? I'm going to wear like a respirator. Little did they realise that the respirator spreads aerosol in the air. That's what it does. Its function is that. It's to protect you, but to spread out your aerosol to everybody else. So there was someone on the tube with this respirator wandering around like that. But then after that, if you get on the tube now, a third of the people or more are not wearing masks. Even though the rules in London say you must wear a mask unless you've got an exception. Which means even though they say they've taken a jab, and they think, I'm not fucking wearing a mask, I'm not taking a jab. What was the whole thing for? You know. Or they haven't taken a jab and they're thinking, I'm young, I'm healthy, or they've had coronavirus. And they say, well, I'm immune. And they're not wrong. Of course, if you've had a bloody illness, you're immune to it. Doesn't mean you can't come down ill, but you'll come down mildly ill next time. Right? That's how diseases diminish in their power. So it has been with all diseases in history, which are contagious and which constitute respiratory illnesses. It's how they've all developed. Every single coronavirus they speak about had an emergence or an appearance, had some spike in cases, thereafter declined, and next year will be flu. But of course, when the flu comes next year, or this winter, they're probably going to turn around and say, oh, this is a new strain of flu. unseen before in history. Prevented because we had masks on last year. So only if you put your mask on again, we can maybe stop it from becoming deadly. And of course, there are more people, or better said, the hospitals are more overstretched now than at any time before in British history. And this is the summertime. There are more cases of coronavirus recorded by the government now than there were this time last year. There was no vaccine last year. So how come, when we've got this universal, magnificent, world-beating vaccine, how come we've got 30,000 cases a day, and last year, what, a few hundred? Sorry? Of course, that's part of the issue, but that's not the only issue. That's part of the issue, you're right. It's not the only issue. As far as I can see, something is very strange about what's happened since the emergence of these vaccines. Because we have a respiratory coronavirus, according to the official view, a respiratory coronavirus that coronaviruses always circulate in the northern hemisphere in winter. You can look at the stats, I've got it. I've got the data on it. I've looked at the American stats. Always the spot. Winter, winter. Summer, down. Winter, up. Summer, down. Winter, up. Summer, down. Everywhere in the northern hemisphere. And yet now we have winter up, down in the spring, up again in the summer. Something has gone wrong. Now it could be that something's been done as a consequence of lockdown to undermine our immunity. Undermine the natural course of immune transmission between human beings. The natural course is this. Children go to school and catch every possible virus and bacteria from each other. They begin to come down ill when they're a few weeks old, a few months old. As soon as they go to kindergarten, they come down ill. Every few weeks they're ill. You've got a pack and a cowpole and bloody drip feed to the kids when they're 1, 2 years of age. But then the next year, declines once a year, twice a year. The year after that, no more. The year after that, no more. They get to 15, 16, they hardly have any respiratory illnesses, colds or flus in that period. And they bring home to their parents an update to the immune system that they also acquired when they were children. And if the families are in interconnection, as is the case, for example, in the slums in India, or in the Jewish Orthodox community in London, where a study was done of the Orthodox Jews who refused to obey any of the restrictions imposed under coronavirus. What happened? 3 died. 3 died, that's right. 3 died, hardly 19 hospitalised. A far lower percentage than in the rest of the British population, and yet they had the highest zero prevalence rate in the whole of the world outside of Mumbai. And in Mumbai as well, in the slums, hardly anyone died. And they tested them. Have you got antibodies? Suddenly 80% had antibodies. How come? Nobody even noticed it in the slums in Mumbai. Why? Because they encounter viruses and bacteria since they're born. If they're going to die of them, they die when they're little children, like it used to be the case in England, in the 19th century. You die under the age of 3. If you make it beyond 3, you normally live to a normal age, even like we do here, 65, 60 years of age.
Do you think there's a possibility that people are actually making the
Remotely possible it is. I can't tell you for sure what's going on. I've got no idea.
Because the thing is,
I suspect that there's a correlation, well, there's a visible correlation between the extension of the vaccine and the number of people dying from or with coronavirus in the summer months. That's no doubt about that. What the cause of it is, I don't know.
I've looked at the...
What the cause of it is, I don't know.
I've looked at the number.
I just said what the cause of it is, I don't know.
I've looked at the number.
I didn't say that. I said there's a correlation. Correlation does not equal causation. It may be related. There's a famous statement. ice cream sales are correlated with shark attacks on humans. It's a fact. There's a direct correlation between ice cream sales and shark attacks. It's not a coincidence, it's a correlation. The reason why there's a correlation is because shark attacks happen in summer and people like eating ice creams in summer as well. You know, it's not complicated. But it doesn't mean that ice cream sales cause shark attacks. It doesn't mean that shark attacks cause ice cream sales. So it's a correlation, not a causation.
I've looked at the figures. We're told that 80% of the population have had both of the vaccines. Now, if you've had
65.
Okay, let's say 65% have had both of the vaccines, and even more percentages have had one vaccine. That means we're having up to 200 deaths a day, and the majority of the population have had either one or both of the vaccines. That does not make any sense.
Let me just take some of that away, because there is truth to the fact. One, I saw a stat a month or so ago, about 40% of those in hospital with coronavirus catch it in hospital. Right? So these are people come to hospital, have got cancer or something else, and they may have been vaxxed, but they catch it in hospital. It doesn't mean any more than in the past that they died from coronavirus. Right? It may interact with their illness. That's 40%. That's a lot of people. Right? A lot of the people who are old and got the vaccines many, many months ago, like 85, 86, 87-year-olds, they will be coming to the end of their life anyway. So it could be that they catch coronavirus if it's quite widely prevalent, and that it doesn't necessarily kill them, but it's registered because it happens to catch it at that time. That can also be true. So that's detracting from the argument.
What about the causation?
Causation, I don't know. It should be investigated. And the only way to investigate would be to carry out autopsies. But they don't want to carry out autopsies. They've refused to do this from day one. So we don't know. Well, it's actually not that costly. They just don't want to do it. In Germany, in Hamburg, Klaus Puschel, who's in charge of the autopsy at the clinic in Hamburg, he carried out autopsies on every single coronavirus case attributed to died in Hamburg. And when he did the first 300, I remember seeing him on telly, and he said every single one of them would have died from any agent affecting them at all. So it happened to be coronavirus, but they would have died anyway. So he said they were in such a moribund state, they were on the edge of death anyway. So that's in one case. But elsewhere, you can look around the world. Klaus Puschel's Hamburg study is the only study in the world of autopsies, comprehensive autopsies, of all those who died of coronavirus. So you can either say, well, his study is probably right everywhere, or else you can say, let's do sample autopsies in Britain. Let's say 10% or 20% of those who die should be autopsied, and the same with those who die after receiving a vaccine. The same thing should be done. Now there's another way of doing it. Some German doctors advised in the last month and a half, and that was, if someone comes to you, because in Germany, unlike Britain, when you go and get a vaccination, the doctor gives you the vaccination, or one of his nurses, not just Joe Bloggs on the street, right, which is what they've got here. And so what you need to do, this is what the doctor said, if you come to get a vaccination, he said, I'll take a blood sample before you have the vaccination, and then I take a blood sample 7 days after the vaccination and see whether there's any blood clotting. Now, it was reported by Bakti that one of these doctors contacted him and said between 30 and 70% of those who had any of the vaccines in Germany had minor or major blood clots. Most of them minor, but they were clearly detectable from the sample comparing between the first, prior to having a vaccination and after the vaccination. Now, I can't verify those statements in case Facebook wants to question it or someone else wants to question it, but I can tell you that that's in discussion, and that would be the logical and cheapest thing to do. Now, it happens to be the case in Britain that if you want to get a blood sample now, they write to you and say you can no longer have a blood sample. Give a blood sample because we haven't got little bottles to hold the blood in. That's what they told us. I got 3 messages from my bloody GP saying that we haven't got bottles to store blood in. I mean, what sort of bloody... What a way to run an effing ballroom, as they say.
It could be that out of the 30 million people who've been vaccinated either 1 or twice, some of them have had blood clots caused by their vaccination that they're attributing to the virus.
Yes, and the excuse that is being made now, ridiculous as it is they turn around and say, yes, but even though some people got blood clots, it's far safer than the blood clots you get from coronavirus. The point is, that person who comes down with blood clots, like the 26-year-old whose partner was here last week, who died a couple of months back after receiving, I think it was AstraZeneca. That's not the same person. So you're basically saying, oh, it's fine to murder 100 people if you save 1,000. Well, you can make that conclusion if you like. That's the type of mindset of an attack unit of the American army moving into a village into Fallujah. It's not a medical method. A doctor must swear, do no harm. That's the starting point. Do no harm. I will not advise a medical procedure that can do you more harm than good. And the Joint Vaccination Committee in Britain, to be fair, at the moment, they still turn and said there is no justification to inject the children with these vaccines because the benefit against the risk is not there.
7 times more likely to get a heart condition.
Exactly, than you are to die of COVID. Exactly. Those who die or become seriously ill from COVID, who are children, are all severely immunocompromised. There might be 1 or 2 or not. Perhaps they didn't discover. Perhaps they didn't do autopsies on them. And that's the case all around the world. Children, for whatever reason, children are almost completely protected against this coronavirus. And in fact, anyone under 50 is almost completely protected. Doesn't mean they can't come down ill. Doesn't mean they can't even be hospitalised. But almost none of them die. So all this bullshit about booster, I'll tell you one second, booster. Well, I mean, even on their own logic, surely those who are over 80 who want to receive a vaccine because they're scared about this, and they want to choose one of the 240 vaccines, by the way, that are candidate vaccines, okay, if they really want to take it, let them take it. But let them take it around the world, not bloody in England. Boost, every couple of months another bloody jab. It's insanity. Sorry.
Do you think China has exported a state of fear around the world?
I don't think China's responsible for this in one way at all. Firstly, the Chinese lead epidemiologist, Zhong Nanshan, he showed in a study in 2013, published on Cornell University website, that SARS never disappeared. There were 20% zero prevalence amongst children in Guangzhou in 2010 to 12 who were born after 2005, when coronavirus, SARS, had officially disappeared. And that's what the WHO says. That's what the American CDC says. They all say SARS disappeared from the face of the earth. So it wasn't so mad, according to their theory, what Donald Trump said, maybe it'll just disappear. That's what they all said, what are you talking about? Maybe it'll just disappear. But they all say that SARS just disappeared. What if it didn't disappear? What if it just mutated and moved around the world between man and animal, animal and man, man and man, man and animal, animal and man? What if that's the pattern? Dogs can get SARS-CoV-2. Cats can get SARS-CoV-2. Big cats, lions, can get SARS-CoV-2. Civet cats, alpacas apparently can get, tuberculosis. Bats, of course, in their millions, they're going about bats in China. Come dusk today, sit here in the park and watch the bats fly past. All around you there are bats. And when they travel, they don't travel like, they're just like Speaker's Corner. Bats locate and position themselves by squealing, right? So they're constantly squealing out what they've got in their respiratory tract. A bat can get caught in your hair, it can get caught in your jacket, it can get caught in your house, it can live in your roof. Bats, and mankind, don't forget, they're going about, oh, coronavirus come about now from bats. Bats have had coronaviruses for 10 million years. 10 million years. And we used to live in caves with bats. Right? So the idea that we've only just encountered these strange things because someone in China, like, you know, had a pet bat or ate a bat or ate a pangolin, it's utter and complete nonsense. Pure nonsense. Whales get coronaviruses. Whales. Whales don't have any contact with bats. Maybe, you know, like, who's this person that gets swallowed by a whale?
Jonah.
Huh?
Jonah.
Jonah, that's the one. You're obsessed by dicks, my friend. And you. Coronavirus in Wales. Where did they get them from? Where did they get coronaviruses from? They got them when they lived on the land. They were four-legged animals that moved in and out of the water. That's when they caught coronavirus, and they've continued to circulate amongst whales for millions of years.
When did whales have 4 legs?
My friend, I know you're a Bible basher, so I'll leave that aside.
That's not what that is telling us.
In the Old Testament, you'll find strange animals existed before the flood, my friend. Before the flood.
When they keep telling us, when they keep telling us,
That's not very polite.
when they keep telling us that this double vaccine, the mortality rate is getting lower and lower. How do they know? Why is it could be that the virus is getting weaker. How do they know that?
Yeah, exactly. The problem is this, is that from day one, the governments and their scientific advisors threw fog into the air. When any problem came along, they pumped out more fog. More and more and more and more fog. So no one knew what was going on.
In the first
When Jesus was really young, Allah,
John 73. John 73, Jesus said, yeah, this is eternal life. You are the only true God. What does that mean? The only true God.
I've got another one.
You don't know it. You need the Bible. No, you don't know the Bible.
Refer
You have the Bible. No, look, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Listen.
Why does Allah refer to himself as we?
Listen to me. He quoted prophecy.
one true God. Why does Allah refer to him as
John
we?
1:1,
Is that
John
not
1:14,
plural?
Isaiah 9:6. Revelation 22,
What does Allah say?
13, you can bank all of them, but he wouldn't give you time. He's quoting out of context. Let me tell you.
Is that Allah?
People don't even know your Bible. You quote Genesis 1. Let me tell you. You quote Genesis.